writing up your Braun and Clarke Reflexive Thematic Analysis. You've done all the hard work, coding, developing themes. Now it's time to pull it all together into a compelling write-up. In this video, I'll walk you through exactly how to do that, one step at a time. If we haven't met before, hi, I'm Dr. Elizabeth Yardley. I've spent the last 20 years supporting social sciences graduate students through their dissertations. And I've seen just how tricky this stage of thematic analysis can feel. This is where a lot of people come unstuck. They do a really good job of coding and identifying all of those really meaningful themes, and then they come to write it up. And all that good stuff, it just doesn't shine through. We don't want that to be you. Now, before we get into it, if you're doing Braun and Clarke's Reflexive Thematic Analysis, you might find this helpful. This is my complete guide to the process, with worksheets and examples to walk you through every stage, including the write-up. I'll pop a link to that on the screen right now, and I'll also link to it in the description for later. So, where are we? We are at stage 6 of the process, writing up. If you're at any of the earlier stages, go and check out my other videos, which I'll link to in the description. But for now, we are all about the write-up. So what is the write-up? This is where you tell the story of your data. You move from sorting and coding and developing themes to crafting a coherent narrative around those themes. In other words, you're turning them into a kind of story that's going to make sense to your reader. You're taking those really insightful pieces of the puzzle, which are your codes and your themes, and you're putting them into a logical order that is going to make sense to somebody who doesn't know your data inside out like you do. So in your write-up, you'll be doing these things: describing your themes, using illustrative quotes to highlight things and give some evidence to be transparent in your analysis, and explaining the significance of what you found. This is where you bring it all together. You're not just reporting what people said, you're interpreting what that means. It's not just a case of, here's what I found, go figure it all out for yourself. It's a case of, here's what I found, and here's what I think it means. The data really does not speak for itself in Braun and Clarke's Reflexive Thematic Analysis. You've got to walk your reader through your interpretation of it. Before we get into the next section, I want to hear from you in the comments. What's your study about? What have you focused on? What have you found? Seriously, I'm interested. I love hearing about all the fascinating things that our community here on YouTube are researching, so get typing. I'm going to break this down into really simple steps, and I'll use the example that I shared in my first video on thematic analysis, and that was looking at remote work experiences during the COVID-19 pandemic. So you will have a set of themes that you identified in your analysis, and the best place to start is to just tell your reader what they are, so they know what's coming. Tell them all the themes. So what I'm trying to say is you've got to be really upfront about what all of the themes are from the get-go. Don't kind of slowly reveal them one at a time throughout your chapter. Tell your reader what they all are in that first paragraph. And appearing on your screen right now is an example of what this might look like. So feel free to pause the video, take a screenshot, save it for later, and use this as a template as inspiration for your own opening paragraphs. After we've done that, we're going to write up each theme individually. Think of them as mini chapters. And in those mini chapters, you need to describe what your theme is, provide some illustrative quotes, and interpret and explain it. Let me show you how you might go about starting to write up a theme. Remember, this is just a short example for illustrative purposes, okay? Your actual write-up of a theme is likely going to be a lot longer than this. So this is to just give you an idea, okay? So here we've got a theme called Balancing Work-Life Dynamics in Remote Settings. Here we've got the description of that theme. Here we have some illustrative quotes. These quotes are going to help bring the theme to life. They're going to help ground your analysis in the data. And you want your quotes to be vivid, to be meaningful, to be representative of what that theme captures across your data set. So when you're choosing what quotes to put in, don't just pick random ones. Each one should kind of earn its place, essentially, by highlighting something important. And then after the quotes, you'd move on to your interpretation. So what this theme tells us and why it matters. and we're going to have a look at that now. When we're thinking about interpretation and analysis, we're answering the so what question. Why is this theme important? How does it help you answer your research questions? You're interpreting here, you're not just describing. You're thinking about implications, you're thinking about applications, you're connecting it back to theory. And if you want some really detailed guidance on what this might look like, my Braun and Clarke guide has got lots of examples, lots of sentence starters to help you on your way, just saying. But appearing on the screen right now is a kind of high-level example of what an interpretation might look like. So again, feel free to pause the video, take a screenshot, etc. Essentially, what we can see here is that in our interpretation, we are going way beyond just showing what people have said. We're explaining what it tells us about the things that we're studying, the things we're exploring. We are drawing meaning from the data. And if you're using theory, this is where you make those connections. And of course, don't forget throughout to be reflexive. And notice the reflexive insights here in the last paragraph. Remember, this is reflexive thematic analysis. You are not a neutral bystander. So you're bringing your own perspective to interpreting these things. And it's important to be open about that. So what assumptions are you making? What context are you working within? After you've written up all of your individual themes, it's time to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. This part is so important, and it's often overlooked. And I get why that happens. I understand why that happens, because by the time you get to the end, by the time you've written up all of those individual themes, you've just kind of had enough, haven't you? It's just like, oh, no more. But this synthesis at the end, this bringing it all together, this taking a step back is so important, because you need this to help the cohesion of the story you're telling. So let's go back to our example study of remote working during the COVID-19 pandemic. We identified 4 key themes, and here they are. Each theme tells us something important, but together they reveal a more layered story. So remote work not only reshaped how people worked, it reshaped who they were at work and at home. The shift challenged assumptions about productivity and professionalism and boundaries. So themes 1 and 3 show how relationships and communication changed, often becoming more fragmented, more superficial. Themes 2 and 4 zoom in on the internal struggles, people trying to set limits and manage expectations and preserve their sense of self. So we need to highlight all of these connections and make sure you're bringing this back to your research aims. For example, you could say something like this. Also, connect it back to theory and think about the practical implications. And here's an example of how that might be done. Don't forget, your final few paragraphs are your opportunity to show your reader how all your themes connect, that they're not just floating around on their own. Each one is part of a jigsaw puzzle, and you need to explain exactly how and why they fit together in the way they do. As I said at the start, if you are knee-deep in writing up your reflexive thematic analysis, you will find my guide really helpful for that. Appearing on your screen right now is another video you're going to find helpful once you've written up your analysis. It's about the conclusion chapter of your thesis. If you're a bit unsure what to write in there without just regurgitating your discussion, you definitely need to go and check out that video. So go and take a look. I'll see you in there.